And welcome back to another daily devotion. I'm Pastor Roy here at Woodlawn Christian Church in Lake City, Iowa, and this devotion is for Monday, March 13th of 2023. We have found our way to the 7th chapter of the book of First Corinthians. And I should put a warning on this one. I probably should have put a warning on the last several videos. This one is more of an adult topic. Paul here is talking about directions concerning marriage. We'll be talking about that for the next couple of days. Next maybe 2 or 3. I'm not sure how I'm going to break this up, but at least for 2 days, or at least for this Monday and Tuesday, if not Wednesday as well. So there's a parental warning on that. He's talking about sex in marriage, and about getting married so that you're not attracted to so that this licentiousness doesn't is as attractive to you, I guess. Let's put it that way. We were talking in the end of chapter 6 about the prostitutes, and some point out that's temple prostitutes, but it's not entirely temple prostitutes. Prostitution was a going business, a concern in Corinth. It was a very licentious place, as I may have mentioned. There's a lot of immorality in this place. It is, again, a harbor town, and where you've got sailors coming in and going, you've got a lot of red light districts. That's just a fact of humankind. And so it was readily available. And in some marriages in ancient times, and perhaps in other parts of the world still today, one didn't marry for love. It was more of a business arrangement or a family arrangement to strengthen business alliances or government alliances. You know, the monarchy. You would have people that were married to one another that had no use for each other and had great contempt for one another, and thus they were married, but yet they had their liaisons on the side. They both sides, men and women. So that is Paul speaking against that. It's not what marriage is about, guys. It needs to be a bond, and sex is something that I very strongly talk about in premarital counseling, because there's 3 big things that cause divorce. They say one, of course, is money. One is the children. We argument over how to raise the children predominantly. I think that one's probably gotten really touchy and gooey in this day and age with some of the silly, crazy things that people are thinking of these days. But we won't belabor that or go into that. That's a topic for another day. And the third one is sex within the marriage. It's a very vital part of a marriage, whether you're either party, male or female. It is important that you have that intimacy, or else your marriage is really not a marriage. You're just roommates. But let's read that, and the verses. We're going to do verses 1-7 today, and let's read those, and we'll talk more about this. We'll get back to that. So put a bookmark there. All right. Chapter 7 in 1 Corinthians, verses 1-7. Now concerning the matters about which you wrote, it is well for a man not to touch a woman. But because of the temptation to immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not rule over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not rule over his own body, but the wife does. Do not refuse one another, except perhaps by agreement for a season, that you may devote yourselves to prayer. But then come together again, lest Satan tempt you through lack of self-control. I say this by way of concession, not of command. I wish that all were as I myself am, but each has his own special gift from God, one of one kind and one of another. Okay. First of all, there's some people think that Paul's finally getting to answering the questions that has been written to him. I think he's been answering some as we go along. He just hasn't been quite as obvious. But now he's answering a question that was written to him. We don't know exactly what the question was. We don't know exactly what the statement was. Some feel that some people in the church were writing to him saying that people should basically abstain. They shouldn't marry. They should abstain from sex. That is what is written to Paul. I don't think so. I think it's probably given where it is because of as I said before, the nature of the beast in that town is that they're not taking that point of being celibate. Rather, I think what Paul is saying when he says it is well for a man not to touch a woman, that's what he thinks, because verse 6 to me confirms that. I say I say this by way of concession, not of command. I wish that all were as I myself am, but each has his own special gift from God, one of one kind and one of another. Paul, for whatever reason, has such self-control that sexual desire seems not to have sway over Paul, which makes him a fairly unique human being, though there are people that are like that. I can't say I understand it, but that's an aside. But he thinks that that's the best way, that by abstaining from that attraction, he can devote himself more fully to serving God. And that is true. If Paul had a family, now we don't know if Paul was married and lost his wife or what. We don't know if he has children. We just don't know those things. But he's not married at this point, okay? I think this tells us that there's not a wife in the picture right now. Paul is celibate, and he's happily that way. But if he were to have a wife, he wouldn't have been able to do the things he did. And so therefore for him, that's a gift, that gift of being unburdened, if you will. Not that a wife or a husband is a burden, they're a blessing. But he doesn't have to worry about someone else while he's going all over kingdom come literally. And if he were encumbered, he would have a problem there, because he'd either be worrying about his spouse or he'd have to bring her with him. And boy, Paul dang near died several times, and so it wouldn't have been a good thing to have another person there that you would have to be worried about getting injured or killed, especially the shipwrecks. So what Paul is saying here, again, this is a very important part of the relationship. If it's about not being enticed by others, by these prostitutes and whatnot running around, male and female, that if you have a wife or a husband, and you are both taking care of each other's needs in that category, the sexual diet, appetite, you need to be there for one another. And there's more to that than just that in a relationship. I hope you realize that. A good sex life contributes to the intimacy that the couple has, not just in that area, but in all areas. It's my experience that you have less fighting if you are being in such a fashion. You have less conflicts. You are more devoted to your husband or wife. You have more compassion. All of these things, and the converse, you can get apathy, and you can feel rejected and resentful, and all of those things that come from a lack of having that intimacy one to another, even without actual intercourse. Again, this is a parental warning on this video. Just the fact of being intimate together, whether there's the act of intercourse is involved or not, it's very important to all relationships. And I think it is sad that we tend to neglect this as we get older. In fact, I had a gathering with some men recently, and there was one of them made a comment towards them, joking about something about this kind of thing, and one said, well, it's been a very long time since that. And I was really didn't say anything, but I was tempted to. I had to really bite my tongue, because I wanted to say that's really sad, and that's really unfortunate, and you might want to work on that, because no matter how old you are, I don't care if you're 95, if your spouse is still with you, you still need to have some kind of an intimacy, whether it's intercourse or just being together and holding one another and, cuddling or whatever you want to say. That's a very vital part of that. It is that part of the marriage. It's very, very important. And again, it's something I do try to stress in premarital counseling, that people need to be on a similar wavelength and understand that it's not just about you. That's the thing about Christianity too. It's not just about me. It's not just about you, but we're about the whole. And here within this covenant that you have, and it is a covenant. Remember that marriage is very important. Now, Paul's going to have some things to say about marriage, and as we go down, that quite honestly, I do wonder what Jesus would have thought of that, because Jesus talks in the synoptics about divorce, and he forbids divorce. In Matthew's gospel, the only time he allows divorce is in case of infidelity on the wife's half, not on the husband's half. But we'll talk about that as we get to that section. Again, it is very important for the marriage as a whole, the success of the marriage, the happiness of the couple, their ability for here, Paul's saying it, for their ability to live a Christian life and to be of service. That they need to remember that they're for one another. And if you're there for one another in that way, you should be there for one another in every way. And again, obviously there's times when there's injury and illness and those types of things that Paul doesn't mention that here. He mentions taking time away, basically as almost like a Lenten practice. As we're in the middle of Lent now, almost like that, where you're abstaining because of giving something up for that period of time. But that it should be a set time, an agreed upon time between the two, lest they lose self-control and be tempted by Satan. So Satan is real, guys and gals. Satan is out there, and Satan doesn't come to you as an ugly beast. He comes as a very attractive whatever. And so beware. He knows when Satan's fishing for souls, he knows how to bait the hook. He knows what is you're going to fall for, so to say. And so be very careful, and be very careful of your spouse. You have an obligation to your spouse. Not just in saying that you, in a conjugal way, as Paul's saying here, but it's an obligation to protect your spouse. And that's part of protecting them, is being there for them in all ways, including sexual intercourse. So, again, adult topic today. Sorry about that. But we've had several of them here coming up in the last few days. And I would point out, which might, again, upset some folks, he's talking here about husband and wife. He's talking about male and female, not any other arrangement. He's already condemned that back a couple days ago in chapter 6. So if there were any ways to argue your way around that one, I think it might have shown up here, but it does not. This is talking about that your husband and wife, just as the biblical thing. So you become one body. And again, it is a covenant. I mentioned that earlier, but I want to make sure I stress that. Marriage bed is a covenant. It's a covenant between you, your spouse, and God. And that's important. But I've talked about divorce before. And maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway, this video has gone way long. We're almost at 13 minutes, so I'm going to let you go. Have a blessed day, and please be a blessing to someone today. And if you like these videos, if you gain something from them, please do like and subscribe. We'd love to have you back. With that, have a blessed day, and as I said, be a blessing to someone today. Take care. Tell them about Jesus. All right? Bye-bye.